Determining your patient's CF. CF stands for causative factor. As a classical five-element acupuncturist, this form of treatment influences all that we do. You may already be familiar with the Chinese five elements of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Perhaps you are a practitioner of five-element acupuncture. However, there is no need to worry if you are not. Knowledge of this style of acupuncture is not required to carry out a facial enhancement acupuncture treatment or aculift. Having said that, we would like to give you a brief introduction to the five elements and show how they might be able to help you when treating a patient, be it for a conventional acupuncture session or an aculift treatment. The five elements. The basis behind the five-element traditional diagnosis is to try to work out which element is your patient's causative factor. This is the element that remains with them from birth or early childhood for the rest of their life. The CF represents a person's underlying imbalance, and once you have determined this element, you can tailor your treatment plans with this in mind. In our experience, this additional information should help you to achieve some remarkable results. Five-element practitioners diagnose a patient's element by using four key factors: emotion, color, odor, and the sound of their voice. And, as we will see, the five elements of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water are also associated with, amongst other things, the organs of the body and the seasons. These correspondences extended to flavors, as outlined in this extract from the most significant book in the history of Chinese medicine, the Neijing, or the Neiqing, or the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine. Hence, if too much salt is used in food, the pulse hardens, tears make their appearance, and the complexion changes. If too much bitter flavor is used in food, the skin becomes withered and the body hair falls out. If too much pungent flavor is used in food, the muscles become knotty and the finger and toenails wither and decay. If too much sour flavor is used, the flesh hardens and wrinkles and the lips becomes slack. If too much sweet flavor is used in food, the bones ache and the hair on the head falls out. Salt is the flavor of water, bitter relates to fire, pungent is associated with metal, sour is linked to the element of wood, and sweet correlates to earth. This excerpt alone demonstrates how knowledge of the five elements can reveal a direct correlation to the condition of the skin and appearance. Now, obviously, we cannot explain in a few paragraphs what takes many years to learn, but we would like to give you a short taster of the Chinese five elements and how they may be incorporated into an aculift treatment. You might then decide to explore the five elements further and in greater depth. According to the Taoist theory, the five elements were born of yin and yang, and in turn they gave birth to the 10,000 things. Many would say that this subject is a lifelong study, but if this ancient classic is anything to go by, it is one well worth dipping into for matters of longevity. This knowledge of the Tao and the workings of yin and yang was considered even strong enough to counteract the effect of age. Thus, we find it said in the Neiqing that those who have the true wisdom remain strong, while those who have no wisdom grow old and feeble. To begin, let us look at each of the five elements individually. Spring is the season of the wood element, the time of rising yang energy, creativity, and birth. The spring is the time when we look forward to the coming year with optimism and excitement. Or rather, we should if our wood element is in balance. This season is all about fresh starts and new things bursting into existence. It is seen in the plants and the trees around us and the wildlife coming to life after the long sleep of winter. We should be starting to make plans for the future now, putting to rest memories from the past and looking forward with optimism. The spring can be a very lively and noisy time with people starting to go about their business and planning for the new year ahead. The animals are beginning to show more activity in the fields As the spring lambs bounce around, it is generally a time when things start to happen after the shutdown of the winter months. The gift of this season is the optimism and chance to look to the future. It brings to us an opportunity to start again, to put failure behind us, and take a fresh approach to life. Obviously, this only works if we are in balance. If we are suffering from an imbalance during this season, we will find it very hard to plan or look forward. We will have no energy, no drive, and no ambition. If we have no vigor, then we can become depressed and anxious. These are all signs that something is not right. Spring is linked with the wood element because of the prospects for growth and development. If a tree is not nourished and given a chance to grow, then it will wither and die. Very much like the body and also the spirit of a person who is suffering from an imbalance. Again, like a tree, we must be able to bend and be flexible, adapting to things that may come our way. We must stay strong and rooted, but supple enough to give a little should the need arise. The wood element will show itself as someone who is well motivated and organized, someone who is a scrupulous planner. Perhaps they might be self-employed or a director of a company, a person used to having life mapped out ahead of them. They are people who like to be pushed and their abilities tested and stretched. A wood element will be totally dedicated to anything that he pursues. This may be to do with work or the family. It can be taken literally to the point where that person would lay down their life for that cause. If we look at a historical example, we could see this devotion in Joan of Arc, who, being so totally dedicated to what she believed in, became a martyr. The spring is truly a time for inspiration, when everything looks more positive than perhaps at any other time of the year. This is the time when we can achieve and get things done. The emotion that is linked with the wood element is that of anger or lack of anger. When the wood element is in balance, this emotion will not necessarily be portrayed as the usual idea of anger, but perhaps more as a forcefulness of wanting to get things done, not tolerating laziness or sloppiness. Whereas lack of anger will come across as someone who is very timid and they may appear to have had the stuffing knocked out of them. The sound that relates to this element is that of shouting, and patients with a constitutional imbalance may have a clipped or loud voice. Within each element, there are organs, also known as officials, which process, store, and distribute vital energy. Their functions are very specific, and it is this rather than the physical properties of each that works to maintain life. The wood element has two officials, the liver and gallbladder. They can be likened to the architect and the site foreman on a building site. One makes the plans and the other makes the decisions on how to put these plans into progress. The liver is the official of planning. This manifests itself in the body, mind, and spirit. We must all have a plan, be it long-term or short-term. Otherwise, we would lack direction and meander aimlessly. The liver official is always evident in the wood element, as they are very serious planners. They usually have everything mapped out to the finest detail. They will also have a contingency plan prepared for those times when things do not go quite as they expected. A wood element imbalance will have all the angles covered. When things are planned to this degree, it can give us the peace of mind to be able to relax, as we know we have all eventualities under control. The body has many contingency plans of its own that spring into action when they are required. When we cut ourselves, a plan is launched that begins to clot our blood. There are many plans that are in place, which release hormones into our system when our reserves are becoming depleted. Another example of a plan, this time solely in women, is that of the menstrual cycle. This is a plan that is regular when we are in balance. As soon as we suffer an imbalance, these plans go out of the window and the menstrual cycle can become irregular or can even cease. The liver carries on planning for our futures, and without this service we would flounder and lose direction. This official also gives us the power to be flexible. When things do not quite go to plan, the liver will give us the adaptability to change them. When there is an imbalance, any change of strategy such as this would be devastating and we would not be able to cope. The ability to plan is more important than ever to our spirit. We need to be able to look to the long term, and we want to be able to realize the goals that we have set for ourselves. Without this capacity to organize our lives and look ahead, it could almost feel as if we have no reason to exist. The liver is the official responsible for managing the flow of qi and also blood. An imbalance would emanate in the mind as an inability to move forward, a feeling of being stuck in the same place and eventually becoming stagnant as nothing is moving. On a more physical level, an imbalance may show in the form of anemia or some other blood disorders. It may also be evident in poor circulation as the blood is not flowing freely to the extremities of the body. This in turn can cause poor joint conditions and arthritis. Also, the nails of the fingers and toes usually show signs of being in a poor condition. These are obviously at the extremities and not receiving the circulation that is required. The gallbladder is the official of decision making and judgment. It is the official that converts the plans into actual decisions. It excels in making choices. Of course, if this official is suffering from an imbalance, then the opposite applies and decisions will be very difficult to make. Our whole existence involves decision making on one level or another. On the physical side, for every movement that we make, a decision has to be made as to which direction or how much weight or when can that arm or leg move. That is why people whose gallbladder is not functioning correctly might show signs of movement disabilities or stiffness of the joints. Obviously, decision making is more evident in a mind situation, and without this official functioning to its best capability, the person will stagnate and be unable to make any decisions. They will flounder without any direction or purpose. They may also resort to being very judgmental about others. They will have a fixed idea of how they think things should be, and there is no room for reason or discussion over the matter. The gallbladder is one of the most influential officials in the body, becoming involved with all of the others. It directs and organizes the rest. In Chinese medicine, the gallbladder is said to be the only official who works with pure essence. All of the others either store or come into contact with polluted or dirty energy. Western medicine sometimes removes the gallbladder in cases of disease, and the patient can have a normal, healthy life. But if that is the case, why do we have the organ in the first place? From this perspective, the gallbladder carries out the function of storing bile, which it regulates to the small intestine. Without the gallbladder, the bile still flows to the small intestine, but in more of a drip-feed manner rather than a regulated flow. The wood element facial patient. The amazing ability of the liver to regenerate following partial resection or injury is unique, especially because the highly differentiated functions of the organ are totally maintained. The qualities of regeneration held by the liver are so important, especially from the perspective of aging. One thing that we can be sure of when we see a wood patient for Causative is that they would most likely have done their homework. They will know what they are looking for and will have everything planned to the finest detail. There should be no problems with this patient making a decision unless, of course, they are out of balance. And if that is the case, perhaps some general acupuncture should be the first course of action. One of the main symptoms in a wood element can be poor circulation, which means blood is not flowing freely to the extremities. This could manifest in the face and the skin. It may look dull and lifeless, and there may be signs of age spots and discoloration. A wood patient would definitely benefit from the circulatory stimulation that Causative would bring to the skin. The fire element is linked to early summer, south, and the color red. Insects dart and buzz continually until the air itself seems to be in motion, while butterflies duck and rise like flames. Through it all, light and heat bear down with an intensity that sears the senses. This is according to Reichstein in 1998. This is the time of maximum yang, and the fire element CF will carry echoes of this in what is likely to be a passionate, friendly, enthusiastic, and compassionate nature. The sun at its zenith at this time of the year fills us with warmth. The fire element has the power to transform things, and this season has that quality. The term fire also means to transform. The yang qi are in charge, and the 10,000 beings undergo change and transformation. Often with a rosy or red complexion, the fire person's dominant emotion is joy. Like the emotion of anger for wood, this can manifest at either extreme, as an excess of joy or a lack leading to sadness. Problems in relationships can also derive from an out of balance fire element, either from not letting others in or by being too open without determining whether someone is trustworthy. A fire CF is likely to be naturally tactile, flirtatious, and at times inappropriate in what they say. When they are in balance, they can be happy, playful, great communicators, and full of genuine laughter. It is then that this element has the ability to truly listen to the needs of people in their lives. Unlike the other elements, the fire element has 4 officials: heart, small intestine, pericardium, and triple heater. The heart is the supreme controller, and that is exactly what it does. This official should be protected at all costs. All of the other officials are likened to the ministers in the court who take their orders and allotted duties from the heart. The Western medical view of the heart is very important, but it is only really considered to be a pump. The Chinese perspective is far greater. You rely on your heart to instruct the other officials in the tasks that they should carry out, but this can only be the wishes and desires of the other officials. The heart is also the home to our Shen. This is our spirit. When our Shen is strong, this will show in our whole presence, the way we act and conduct our lives. Governing the distribution of blood throughout the body, the heart, when its flow is strong, will reach every corner of our physical being. Shen is yin in character and said to correspond to the mind. It is responsible for complex mental, emotional, and spiritual feelings and affecting areas like consciousness, mental activities, memory, thinking, and sleep. It receives its input from the senses, thus the events outside the body are directly related to a change in heart rate. The other view of the heart is that of the official of love and other emotions. This is very clear when traumas and feelings are evident. We are always hearing how the heart was broken or how someone has given their heart to someone. The heart may be the supreme controller, but it is also very vulnerable to attack from the emotions and needs to be protected at all times. The small intestine is known as the official, who separates pure from the impure. It is the sorter. The stomach passes on the rotted and ripened food to the small intestine, whose role is to extract the pure chi energy and then pass on the waste to the large intestine for disposal. This sorting helps to maintain a pure mind and spirit. If this official is not functioning properly, it may become evident in extreme cases in depraved or degrading behavior. The small intestine's link to fire is that this element helps to warm the positive chi energy to give warmth and joy to our lives. There may be times when things seem confused and in a mess. This can be a sign that the sorter is not working correctly. On a physical level, the body can then become sluggish and slow. It becomes bogged down with bile and rubbish that is not being sorted by the small intestine. The stagnation of waste within the body can show in the symptoms of a tummy ache, especially in children, or as pains, such as in the lower back. If this official is not functioning properly, it can lead to stagnation or pollution, not only of the body, but of the mind and the spirit too. Also known as the circulation sacs and the heart protector, the pericardium protects the supreme controller from insult and injury. The heart is so busy organizing the other officials that it does not have the time to watch its own back. That is where the pericardium comes in. It is the bodyguard to the heart. The heart protector stands in the way when we suffer from physical or mental shocks. The heart protector's role should not come as a surprise to us, since there are many parallels in nature around us of the same function. The bees protect their queen with millions of workers so that she can be allowed to do her work without fear of invasion and attack. Herds gather themselves around their leader and fend off threatening attack. The triple heater, also known as the sanjiao or triple burner, is the official in charge of the three burning spaces within the main trunk of the body. The interesting thing about the triple heater is that it is the only official that does not manifest itself in any particular organ. It has a title but no form as such. It is still an immensely important official within the system. The main job of the triple heater is to maintain an even balance of heat across the three main areas of the body. This sustains an even climate for each of the other officials to perform at their optimum level. The nickname for this official is the heating engineer. Picture him running around your system, maintaining the organ's output and reliability. If this official becomes out of balance and too much heat accumulates, this can cause lethargy and laziness. Also, the mind and spirit start to overheat and we lose our tempers and patience. If it goes the other way and we begin to freeze, then things will eventually grind to a complete stop. This official also monitors the conditions that are around us, either in the climate or those that we may subject ourselves to, like hot baths or cold drinks. It then adjusts our body's thermostats to suit. So, although this official has no form, its presence is felt throughout the body. If it is sick and not performing its duties properly, then the whole system of officials will cease to work correctly. Facial complexion, which is a direct reflection of blood circulation, is also a major external indicator of heart function. Therefore, the heart is indicated when the face shows excessive redness or where there is a lack of fire, an extremely pale complexion. The heart also houses the shen, and as this links to the emotions, when troubled, this can have an effect on stress levels and a patient's sleep. We all know how sleep deprivation, SD, can affect the way we look and feel. In a 2010 article collected data that shows why this may be happening. Reduction of sleep time seems in many ways to affect the composition and integrity of various systems. The sleep deprivation causes an increased production of glucocorticoids, which may alter the integrity of the skin. In addition, the SD causes deregulation of the immune system, which consequently may also affect the integrity of collagen fibers. We can see that the fire element out of balance can manifest in insomnia, which clearly can have a direct effect on the skin. The emotion for fire is joy and the sound is laughter. The focus of a fire CF's treatment may even be around the fine lines and wrinkles that have formed from all that smiling. Like the sun, a fire element CF may like to be center of attention. There is an underlying vulnerability that sees them hankering for compliments. This craving could be a driving force for them seeking treatment to enhance their appearance, and is something that may come to light during the initial consultation. The earth element is linked to late summer, the time of declining young. Traditionally, it is seen as the central pivot for the other elements. The exceeding beauty of the earth in her splendor of life yields a new thought with every petal. An earth element is a person who is used to serving others. It is something they do without complaint, and they are at their happiest when they are helping people with one thing or another. This rushing around looking after other people could lead to a feeling of emptiness or being unfulfilled in oneself because all of their energy and time is taken up by other people. This lack of fulfillment may manifest itself in an earth element as an eating disorder, a need to eat in order to give themselves some attention. Although they would be eating, it would not necessarily be for the reasons of nutrition, but more than likely as a need to do something for themselves. This would probably lead to excessive eating and digestion problems, with the feeling of being bloated. An earth element may show signs of heaviness or lethargy. Another sign of an imbalance in an earth element is for them to go to extremes of one form or another. They may become obsessed with cleanliness or with how they look, or they may go completely the opposite way and let their appearance and standards go altogether, not taking any interest in themselves at all. For some, these feelings go back to when they were children and their mother was always making sure that they were constantly clean, neat, and tidy. The earth element nourishes us as our mother, feeding and supporting us, giving us the ability to care for ourselves and others. Of course, if this nurture was lacking in childhood, it can lead to a constant search for this kind of attention. When we understand this, it is not hard to see how the emotion associated with earth is that of sympathy. This need can be excessive, or there can be a complete lack of compassion. We are all made up of the 5 elements, and although you may not consider your patient's primary CF to be earth, you may recognize a little of this element in their makeup. For example, they may feel that they are always taking on other people's problems or worrying about others and what might happen if they do not help them. There is often a fear of letting others down, and for an earth element, this can feel as if they are carrying a large weight across their shoulders, which stops them from walking upright and grinds them down. It is important for those with an earth CF to realize that they can still care about people, but they need to take time to look after themselves too. The earth element is all about nourishment and nurturing, about taking on board food and digesting and distributing it around the body. This is done by the 2 officials, the stomach and the spleen. As well as nourishing the body, we must also look after the mind and spirit equally. We must always be looking to digest as much knowledge as we can in order to keep the brain as active as possible. By absorbing this information, we are making ourselves feel secure and able to cope with problems. So it is understandable that when an earth element is out of balance, this can also affect the mind. There will of course be the more obvious physical symptoms, but it will affect the mind in similar ways to the body. When the latter is not working correctly, the stomach can feel knotted up and not able to receive any more nourishment. It is in this same way that the mind and the spirit can feel overwhelmed and unable to take any more in. It can become confused and discard information in a similar manner to the stomach rejecting things when it is not right. These are all symptoms which demonstrate that both the physical and mental aspects of an earth element are not in balance. The stomach is referred to as the official of rotting and ripening food and drink. It digests the food that it receives and also controls the creation of waste byproducts. We have observed that when something is out of balance, it can affect the mind as well as the body. Someone with a stomach imbalance may have a very vacant look about them, and they are unable to digest any facts or information that may be provided. This information will have to be condensed and fed to them in small sections so that they are able to take these facts on board. If too much information is thrown at them, they will show signs of confusion and also anxiety. The products processed by the stomach, either nutritious or waste, are transported throughout the body by the official of transportation and distribution, the spleen. If there is a breakdown or imbalance in these officials, then the whole cycle of creation and distribution breaks down, thus creating problems throughout the whole body and mind. Both the stomach and spleen are integral to the well-being of all of the other officials throughout the body. In his book, In the Footsteps of the Yellow Emperor, by Ekman, 1996, the author refers to ancient Chinese beliefs that the stomach and spleen officials should be strengthened as a basis for all other treatments. If the distribution system is not functioning smoothly, then food and byproducts will not be distributed and they will rot and cause blockages throughout the system. These officials must be allowed to transport and distribute efficiently in order to maintain an even balance. As with the stomach, a similar distress can manifest itself when the official of the spleen is imbalanced. The spleen is the transporter, and if this function is not working smoothly, worry and stress can set in, which can cause as much of a problem as a physical slowdown or blockage in the body. From our studies of the earth element and its officials, it has become clear that they are integral to the efficient running and maintenance of our mind, body, and spirit. The stomach is the furnace that keeps our engines well stoked and full of power and energy, both for our physical well-being and to keep our mind and spirit alert. The spleen provides the means around our system to all the areas that require the stimulation. It seems evident that we would not be able to carry on with a healthy and rewarding existence if either of these officials were not working correctly. Therefore, it must be in all of our interests to maintain a balance here before we can even look at other areas of our well-being. A deficiency in the spleen will be indicated by sagging skin and the loss of tone to the face, as this organ relates directly to the flesh. The spleen controls the flesh, and flesh that is particularly flaccid or drawn reflect imbalances in the spleen function. The earth element from an octave perspective is very interesting. Earth elements can be obsessive about their appearance, so may be unrealistic about their expectations of what might be achieved by a facial treatment. This needs to be taken into consideration when you are discussing the expected results. When we look at the other side of an earth imbalance, the patient may let themselves go and have no interest in how they look or what might be done to improve their skin or their appearance. The problem with this imbalance, of course, is that the patient is very unlikely to seek help through an oculift procedure. The metal element is linked to autumn, the time of rising yin. Metal is about connection, inspirational quality, and purity. Autumn is considered to be the time of winding down, getting together a storehouse, ready to see you through the winter. If you do not get the reserves together in autumn, then it will be a very difficult winter to get through. It is also a time of reflection when one looks back and perhaps takes stock of things and issues that have happened in the past. It can be a period when a person may paint or put their thoughts on paper and want to leave a more permanent record to pass on to their children and family. This can sound a little bit somber, but it is not like that at all. Autumn is also the time when nature has the last burst of color and energy, as the trees and plants give an exhibition of wonderful hues. The related emotion for this element is grief. Those who experience a metal imbalance may lose their judgment about when to let go and will often suffer from symptoms such as diarrhea or constipation. The latter extreme can manifest in the mind as an inability to let go and look forward. This person will always be thinking of what has gone before and perhaps what might have been. Like trees in autumn, they need to release their fruit and let it drop to the ground. What they are doing is hanging on, and this fruit is rotting and causing them an imbalance. It is very true that this time of the year is a period for reflection, and we may all find ourselves looking back and contemplating whether the year has lived up to our expectations. It is very hard not to dwell on the past, but this is really wasted energy unless we can change our perspective of those events in order to move forward. What we need to do is look to the future and be positive in our attitudes, which is sometimes easier said than done. Metal is attributed with discernment and quality and also purity. This can be likened to the rich minerals and one that are found within the earth, which in turn can be processed to extract precious metals such as gold. These types of qualities in a person are something very special to have. They will come across perhaps as a perfectionist or as someone who wants things done properly and in order. They will likely be outspoken about their beliefs and have very high ethical and moral views. Air is also linked with the element of metal, and obviously this is one of the greatest gifts that we have, as without it there would be nothing. Air is what gives us life and vitality and what feeds our lungs. We must be continually looking for that clean, fresh air that we require to develop and go forward. We do not want to become bogged down with impure and slate air, which can be likened to the old memories and feelings from our past that may stop us progressing. As we have discussed, a metal element is very pure and inspirational, someone who is organized and straightforward. As earth relates to the mother, metal is associated with the father, which speaks of authority and respect. This CF is likely to see things as cut and dried and would not want to see a do not care, do it tomorrow type of attitude. You could sum it up by saying that you know where you stand with a metal element. Therefore, a challenge to someone of this element would be disorganization and irresponsibility. They would find it very difficult to tolerate scruffiness. Of course, as we have seen with each of the elements, an imbalance could result in the other exaggeration, where someone could lose their self-esteem and become completely unkempt. When we focus on the metal element, we need to look at the two officials of the lung, known as the official who receives the pure chi from the heavens, and the large intestine, which is recognized as the official of drainage and dregs. These officials are interrelated, as one brings goodness and vitality into the body and the other expels the waste and byproducts from the body. The functions of the officials of the metal element are in many ways the easiest to follow. They share a great many similarities with the physical functions of their equivalent organs in Western physiology. The lung is of the greatest importance to us. It is the first sign of life when we are born, and it is also the last sign when we pass away. It takes the energy from the outside of the body to the inside. It acquires what sustenance it needs from the air it has inhaled and then expels what it does not need when it exhales. The lung official then circulates this vital energy throughout the body, mind, and spirit. It breathes fresh air and life into our whole being, and it also gets rid of the stale and tainted air that resides within us. However, we do seem to take even the act of breathing for granted. We have to eat, drink, and breathe to survive, but we would soon panic if we could not find some food or water to consume. And yet we can go for days without this nourishment, but we can only survive for a matter of minutes without air. Do we really take much notice of the air that we take into our lungs? As a society, we are always polluting what we take in. We inhale cigarettes either by choice or secondarily by the environment that we find ourselves in. We are forever breathing in pollution from cars and factories, and yet we often do not seem to think twice about the consequences. If, however, we eat one too many cream cakes, then it is as if the world has come to an end. The lung official is crucial to throwing away rubbish as it expels the carbon dioxide that builds up in our bodies. This pollutant is harmful and deadly, and it is very important that it is removed from our systems. The other official associated with the metal element is the large intestine. The large intestine is the official of drainage and dregs. It is responsible for getting rid of unwanted material that can cause blockages and problems when things are not running smoothly. Of course, this also applies to the mind and spirit. If things are allowed to build up and are not cleared out on a regular basis, then they will rot and become stale. This can lead to the mind and spirit becoming clogged up and not able to move forward. This official is the dustman for all of the other officials. When it is working properly and on time, then the rubbish is cleared away and everything can flow efficiently. If we think back a few decades to the refuse collector strikes in the UK, we can remember the devastation that was caused as the rubbish began to build up in the streets for many weeks. The danger of disease became very serious, and eventually society would have ground to a halt. This is what happens to the mind, body, and spirit if this official is not functioning correctly. Eventually, everything will seize up and stop working. Even when it eventually starts performing as it should, there will be a backlog to clear up. Therefore, a complete balance may take some time to achieve. We consider the metal element one of the easiest to recognize in a prospective oculift patient. The skin is often referred to as the third lung, and most skin disorders are related to an imbalance in this element. The Neijing states that the lungs are connected with the skin. Also, as the official of drainage and dregs, if the large intestine is imbalanced, this could manifest as spots and acne or general poor skin quality. The skin is generally the first place to show any signs when there are toxins or impurities in the body, so this patient would benefit from treating the lung and large intestine points as well as the oculift treatment. Dry skin can also point to an imbalance here. Dry evil is caused by insufficient moisture in the air and is particularly damaging to the lungs. It prevails in autumn and is associated with the elemental energy of metal. Although the symptoms may superficially indicate a primary imbalance, it is important to remember that not everyone who exhibits skin disorders of this kind will automatically be classed as a metal element CF. We are each made up of all of the 5 elements, and they have a complex effect upon one another. So these issues may be an indication of an imbalance at another point in the cycle. This nuanced approach will require a much more in-depth study than we are able to explore here, but if this has not formed part of your acupuncture background, it is enough for now to be aware of these elemental relationships. Perfection is attributed to this element, and a prospective facial patient with an imbalanced metal CF may well be on a quest to achieve this. It is all the more important to address this in the initial consultation and manage their expectations carefully. The water is linked to winter, the time of maximum yin, but its power cannot be underestimated. The type of character that first springs to mind when thinking about a water element is one of the guys in the classic movie Easy Rider. A rebel image conjures up the type of person that does not want to stay in one place for too long and is always looking to move on. Someone who does not conform and stands out from the crowd. If you can call it a gift, then it would be that the water element is a free spirit. Any obstacle that confronts them is easily worked around, like a river finding its way around obstructions or boulders in its way. When balanced, they adapt to the shape that contains them, which on the flip side can indicate a need for boundaries, lest the water overflows and loses control, using up their reserves. In fact, the persona of a water element sounds like a very cool and attractive one to have, a bit of a James Dean figure, a person that is hard to pin down, who is perhaps on a different wavelength to the majority of people, but who risks depleting their essence. The emotion associated with the water element is that of fear, or lack of fear. This feeling can be traced back many years to when farmers would have built up their stores of grain and crops to last over the barren winter months. There was the fear that if this was not done, then there would be no food left come the spring. This fear is still evident today in water elements who during the winter are very conscious to conserve things and are frightened of the consequences if they do not. A farmer would be very careful to make sure that he conserved as much water as possible so that there would be enough supply for the dry season to follow. Take time to observe the relentless persistence of water to get to where it wants. This is a feature that you can see if someone's water element is balanced. They will be persistent in what they do and not give up. Over time, it can wear away the hardest rock and make it smooth. Notice the smell. Each element has an odor, and water's is putrid. The sound that is linked to the water element is that of groaning. This is very evident when you are taking a walk along the beach. The sea has that relentless groaning sound, 1 minute quiet and then a groan as the wave reaches a peak and breaks. A similar sound to a train. Finally, the taste associated with water is salty, and of course you can taste this on your tongue very easily when you are near to the sea. These two officials really do exactly what it says on the tin. They deal directly with the water element. Between them, they govern the major aspects of our vital fluids. They are of the greatest importance to the whole of the body and other officials, as none of them can function without water. The kidney official is known as the official who controls the waterways. This, however, may be a little misleading as the kidney does far more. Ancient Chinese philosophy believed that the kidney official was a storehouse for ancestral energy that was passed on to each generation. It was the seed of life that was handed down. The official takes some of the chi energy from our consumption of food and air and compiles it as a reserve. This supply can be called upon when we have heavy physical or mental tasks to cope with. A part of the kidney official is the Mingmen. This is responsible for warming the essence of the kidney, and it is also a very important part of the official, as it is a warmer for all of the body's organs. The essence that we have mentioned is called the kidney gene. This is derived from both pre- and post-heaven essence. The pre-heaven essence is inherited from our parents at conception. It can be gradually depleted throughout our lifetimes unless it is preserved well. The post-heaven essence is taken from food and nourishment and can be replenished. The function of kidney gene in our bodies is to do with the basis of growth and development. Deficiency can result in stunted growth or retardation and bone and teeth problems. Kidney gene is also the basis of our constitutional strength and the production of bone marrow, which fills the brain and the spinal cord. The pathology of someone with deficient kidney gene will be that of someone who is always weak and prone to constant infections. The bladder is the official who controls the storage of water, and it is the reservoir of the body, mind, and spirit. This is the reserve that we draw from in the winter when things are running low. If this is lacking, then things can start to go wrong in all three aspects. As well as being a reservoir, the bladder is also charged with disposing of the impurities found in our urine. If these are left to build up and not disposed of, this can eventually pollute our whole being. So, if the bladder is out of balance, it may not be able to keep its fluids within its boundaries. This may manifest as incontinence and cystitis-type infections. The bladder is one of the few officials that is similar in its description of use in both Chinese and Western medicine. It is also the longest meridian on the body with 67 points. The bladder and the kidney need to be looked at in the context of equal importance. The kidneys are rulers over the winter. Kidneys and bladder are related and have to be treated as one in acupuncture. These two officials of the water element need to be dealt with the greatest of respect, as they are responsible for a huge amount of water in the body. In fact, according to Masaru Emoto in his book, The Hidden Messages in Water, the average human body is 70% water. That is a large volume of fluid that needs retaining and managing, so these organs need to be in the best of condition. From an emotional point of view, a water element patient looking at an Causative treatment might express irrational fears, perhaps about growing old or the aging process in general. They may be frightened by the prospect of so many needles and potential risks, so they will need more reassurance than most. Alternatively, they will exhibit a complete lack of fear and will seem unfazed. They may have even chosen to have this type of treatment because it is unconventional and appears daring. Whether terrified or unperturbed, you can be sure that once they have begun, they will be determined to see the course of treatment through. As we have seen, the kidneys house our inherited energy or essence. When this is strong, we will grow old gracefully. And if it is weak, old age may arrive prematurely. It is clear to see that strengthening and maintaining the kidney jing can help retain vitality and youthfulness. The bladder is also an important meridian in facial acupuncture as the channel passes over both the head and face. This official helps to expel impurities from the body, so again, similar to the metal element, there may be skin conditions such as greasy skin or blackheads that become evident when this element is out of balance. Thank you for your attention.